Welcome into the garage area, and unfortunately, we have to do our championship recap after Phoenix over a Skype call, but we're here to talk about everything that took place over championship weekend. Majeski winning the Truck Series race and championship, Justin Allgaier winning the Xfinity Series championship, and Joey Logano winning the Cup Series race and championship for his third title, putting him in elite company when it comes to champions. I want to go ahead and start with the truck race, though. Majeski, a really cool story for him with the fact that he was working his way up through the sport, kind of lost his opportunities, had to go right back to the very bare minimum forms of racing in just late model stuff and trying to compete at the Snowball Derby and having an opportunity to serve as an engineer for Thor Sport and then eventually getting an opportunity to race for them in their Truck Series team and ultimately make his way up into being a champion. And by the way, dominated the race in Phoenix, and you called it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that ultimately that's a really cool story for him. I honestly thought he would be a little more emotional than he showed when he won, but didn't seem like it was hitting him yet, at least.
Yeah.
And I think that basically the only other thing that I have to say about the Truck Series is Christian Eckes is a stupid, stupid man.
Yeah. That probably still gave the championship to Corey Heim because Corey Heim was faster than Eckes, but it's still, Majeski at those flat type tracks like that, and I believe he was good at New Hampshire too, and I don't know, just them short tracks. He's like a no-brainer at them tracks.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, it was a great pick that he was going to be the guy to win the race in the championship. And like you said, it probably would have been Corey Heim otherwise had he not gotten in. But because Eckes decided to ship Taylor Gray, he was basically gifted Majeski an opportunity to compete for a championship, and he did and won it. So congratulations to him and that team there for sure. And I thought that was going to be the first leg of Ford sweeping the weekend again. But that didn't pan out, even though that Justin Allgaier really tried in the Xfinity Series race. Allgaier had a car that was supposed to be the car of all cars, and he wrecked it 4 laps into practice when they made it out there to Phoenix. Had to go to a backup car. The backup car being the car that Dale Jr. raced at Bristol.
Yeah.
And
not this past year, but the year prior.
Okay.
That fire.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, that was supposed to be Dale's car, and he ended up after saying he wasn't going to race next year. Jim Pullman told him, "Hey, I'm going to race that car if you're not going to drive it." And he's like, "Yeah, cool." And they go out there and did they race it at Vegas?
I believe they said it was raced at one of the 1.5 mile tracks. I assume Vegas was most recent one. So,
and then ended up using that one for Phoenix as well, under not most ideal circumstances. But even still, it makes me wonder what the first car was like, because the car that he was driving there was hooked up, and he was mowing them down and made his way into a very good position in the field and went ahead and got busted for a restart violation. Pulled out of line before the start-finish line. It is a violation, as much as he was having a fit about it over the radio. That's what it is. And then when he came down to serve his penalty, he got caught speeding. And my understanding there is the sections that they have defined and how many lights you're supposed to run in each section, they didn't take into account, or Justin didn't take into account, whoever should have reminded him on the radio or whatever the case was, that obviously on a normal pit stop, you're going to stop in your box so you can go as fast as you want in that section because you're going to have all the time of being in your pit stall. So because he's just making his way down pit road, he's still running those lights hard, and turns out that, that was a problem because he ends up getting a speeding penalty while serving his pass-through penalty for getting out of line on the restart. And now instead of being 3/4 of a lap down, he's a lap and 3/4 down, and has to overcome that, has to continue to have a mentality that they were still in the fight, and he does. He continues to race hard, and also by just a stroke of good luck is able to be the first car one lap down under a green flag pit cycle when he caught a caution to get himself a lucky dog. And
He was actually on the lead lap by staying out. He unlapped himself by staying out, and
okay,
he
so it
was
wasn't a lucky dog situation. He just was back on the lead lap.
back on. He got his lap back, right, racing around, and then
Okay.
caution came out, and he put his fresh tires on then.
Okay. So yeah, he was either way, it was a lucky break with that where he was at on the racetrack with the caution. And once he got back on the lead lap, I mean, it did not take long for him to drive back through the field. And I don't know what his deal was with Riley Herbst. Even before all this happened, they had made a little bit of contact, and Herbst dominated the race. And then on that last restart, he went out there to kind of really made it a very aggressive move to try to get himself into the race lead. And was it Jesse Love? He like drove across his nose and banged fenders with a 98, and
yeah, that was the final green white checker restart.
Yeah, and gave the 98 a tire rub, and then going into 3 and 4, DeHaant's on the radio telling him like, "Hey, don't remember we're not racing the 98 because he dominated the race. He wants to get the race win for himself. He wants to get the win for SHR." And probably wasn't thrilled with Allgaier in the first place and wouldn't have hesitated to put the bumper to him. So Allgaier goes and backs off. Herbst wins the race, and Allgaier wins his first championship after 7 attempts.
I believe so, yeah.
Which is just a crazy number that he's good enough to be there that many years. You're obviously the JRM fan, the Hendrick boy. What were your thoughts on the Xfinity race?
I thought it was a great race. Well, obviously, I watched Allgaier closely, and just watching his ability to drive from the back to 6th by the end of stage 1 was incredible. I thought it was going to be a shoe-in after that, but obviously he shot himself in the foot like 3 or 4 times trying to do it. But, he can almost remind me of Kyle Larson, just kind of stepping on himself or getting too aggressive, And yeah, I thought it was an incredible race.
Yeah, see, I don't know that I would agree with you on that. It being an incredible race, I didn't really think that the racing was anything overly compelling, just for the fact that it seemed to be difficult to pass at certain points in the race. There was a point where it was Jesse Love, Austin Hill, Justin Allgaier, and one other car, and I can't remember who it was. They just all seemed to be log jammed together and couldn't go anywhere. I think that the storyline made it very entertaining of everything that was happening to Justin Allgaier, but I didn't necessarily think that the race itself was good, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I guess I compare it to the Cup cars. It's like a far better product. So maybe my comparison is just biased based on how the Cup cars race there. But I feel like the Xfinity cars put on a far better show. Maybe that was just where my excitement came from. Just getting some good racing in before the train ride the next day. I'm not sure. So
yeah, no, I agree that most of the time the Xfinity Series race is better, and even this weekend I would say it was better, but I don't know that I'd say it was far better. I think it's largely just a product of Phoenix is not the most exciting racetrack outside of a restart, and I'm sure that there's some tire things that are factored into that as well, but I don't know. I wasn't necessarily disappointed. I actually thought that the Phoenix Xfinity race did exceed my expectations for Phoenix, but I didn't think it was anything that like made me super excited.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix. It obviously wasn't the best race of the year, but I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was an okay race. It's just
perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, it just feels like what used to be like a moderate Cup race, whereas now we get I don't know. I feel more excited watching the Xfinity Series race and how those cars race, and then just I feel like this was as boring as the Cup Series used to be versus what we get now, I guess. So,
yeah.
I mean, this Xfinity Series is like its low is still better than the Cup Series. That's what I don't know, is how I see it. So,
yeah, I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I know that you're an Allgaier fan, and I'm sure that was pretty cool to see him get a championship. Were you pretty excited when he won that?
Yeah, I was.
You know, I don't have any attachment to Justin Allgaier or anything like that, but and he mentioned it on Dale Jr.'s podcast when his daughters came over to him and he saw his parents, that's when he started to get emotional. And that was like, oh man, that's, you know,
Yeah,
that's kind of touching there that this guy's been racing in this series for this long, never really got a fair shake at the Cup Series, and finally breaks through and wins an Xfinity Series championship after this many times being here. Now, again, I think that this night really does exemplify Allgaier's career as a race car driver. Is you have fast race cars, you have the ability to drive them well, but just like you said, like Kyle Larson, he does it more often than Larson does, but just shoots himself in the foot or steps on it or whatever you want to say, and just puts himself in a bad spot unnecessarily. The problem is Kyle Larson largely has enough talent to overcome the mistake, and Allgaier I don't think has enough of that to put him in that category. And he got very fortunate with a good caution that kind of erased some of the damage that he did.
yeah. I mean, you look back at the beginning of the playoffs. He nearly didn't make it out of the first couple of rounds.
It's true.
So so to say, he finished, had to have like a top 5 finish at the Roval to make it out of the round of 8 or round of 12 to 8 or however it worked out. Yeah, they only have 12, 8, and 4. So yeah, so it must have been just the first round, I guess, is what I'm getting at. But yeah, I wish all of them were the same. It'd be a lot easier to keep track of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so.
Anything else you wanted to touch on from the Xfinity Series?
That's all I got.
So that moves us on to the Cup Series race where Joey Logano ends up winning his 3rd championship. He wins the race, gets his 4th win of the year, all of that good stuff. And immediately, as soon as the checkered flag fell, the screams from the fans became illegitimate champion. I have an opinion, obviously. Joey Logano is my favorite race car driver. What say you?
Joey Logano is one of the drivers I don't like the most.
Right.
This was an odd year for. I mean, you could have considered a couple of these drivers illegitimate too. So, I mean, he was at the right spot at the right time. The way NASCAR wanted this championship to work out, he's a legitimate champion because NASCAR is trying to make the playoffs based off of stick and ball sports, and narrow them down. I mean, you could say, what are they, 6th or 7th seed in the NFL could make it to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, based on that theory, it's not an illegitimate championship. This is what NASCAR wanted, and it's what NASCAR got. The playoffs itself causes excitement at each cutoff race. I mean, as much as I don't like the playoff system, it has me thinking and watching things closely to see how they play out. What I think hurts Joey Logano is he's the worst one, I guess, average finish to ever win the championship. And he also got lucky with a Bowman penalty because he was knocked out after the Roval until Bowman was disqualified for his weight. I think a lot of it is the hate against Joey Logano because he's one of the most hated drivers out there. But I mean, I can't argue against him winning a championship, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, here's a couple of my thoughts on this. One is, yeah, he has a bad average finish compared to any other champion. It's like 17.4 or something like that. Which, I mean, that's not good. But I will say this, because of the win in your in system, if you're any driver in the field, and you know that your speed is not, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, like, to where anytime you unload a car, you have an opportunity to win the race. And you're running in the top 15, but not competing for race wins. And you survive all the fuel mileage events that happened at Nashville and get the win, lock yourself into the playoffs. At that point, what is your what is the point for you to try to do anything the rest of the regular season other than shift all of your focus into the next rounds, finding your speed to get through the first, second, and third round of the playoffs? So your average finish is gonna come down because that's not where you're putting your effort. And I think that was the point that Joey made, was that people are saying he's an illegitimate champion, but they have to understand that if the playoff system was different, they would be racing differently. And Blaney's average finish was the worst of a champion last year. So it's getting worse. I mean, it's not like a huge sample size, but it's getting worse because that's the way that you can do it. I'm not saying it's the best way to do it, but it's worked out for Penske the last 3 years, really.
Yeah, what Penske got going for him is like the final 4 tracks or whatever are their wheelhouse. Logano obviously won Vegas 2 years ago, I think, and won the championship.
Yep.
Of course, Blaney the last 2 years won Martinsville, and both of them have been the fastest cars at Phoenix.
Yep.
So, I mean, the way the tracks lay out for them, it's just, I hate saying the word shoe in, but you obviously know they're going to be a runner up top.
Yeah.
The field. So, that's probably more of an argument against Phoenix than it is, the playoff system. They treat one race as a whole. I feel like they're treating one single race as like a one NFL game, a win or finish in front of the other 4, and it just, you can make the argument some NFL teams have, or any stick and ball sport, have home field advantage at one point or another, and that since Penske's good at Phoenix, then it's almost like they have a home field advantage. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say, but all the teams feel like they're trying to work for one track now. Just if they get there. I know Rick Hendrick made the comment that says they spent a long time trying to figure out what to do next. Just Penske has it figured out, and that just feels like one team figures out one track, and that gives them the benefit for a championship every year. Whereas, all other teams have got to try and find that one thing that makes their cars quick there. So it just feels like the rest of the year doesn't matter if you're good at 98% of the other tracks, and that one Phoenix track you're no good at, then you can't win a championship then.
Yeah. Tyler Reddick didn't stand a chance.
Yeah. I was say I morally, really, I kind of rooted for him because he was a regular season champ. To me, he was probably the best, most deserving one in the Final Four. Not to say anything against Ryan Blaney or Logano. I mean, they all had multiple wins, so I mean, it's not. You could argue the 4 just out had better stats also, but I just know Reddick himself just isn't good at these flat tracks.
Yeah. I think that either you have to have fewer drivers that go to the final championship race, like narrow it down to 2 drivers instead of 4, or make it more than one race in the final round. But I want to ask you this. How many 7-time champions do we have in the sport?
3.
How many of them won it in the season-long point standings?
2.
Do you think that Jimmy Johnson is an illegitimate NASCAR champion?
Considering the amount of wins he has and stuff, I could see him deserving championships. I don't see him as a 7-time champ, though. I mean, I don't know. I hate delegitimizing his because looking back at the chase format, I get why they did the original chase, which is where he won all of his championships.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing how much he dominated all the time, it makes him feel more legitimate than maybe it does someone else.
I agree that 6 of those championships feel very legitimate. One of them stands out to me. You know which one I'm talking about?
That the one he won under the playoff format?
Yeah.
Where he was bad the whole race, just got a good restart on the last restart, pretty much.
He got a good restart, and Joey Logano and Carl Edwards crashed.
That's right.
So it eliminated a couple guys, and Jimmy was just the next best guy. And it didn't even look like that he was going to have an opportunity to win the race. And then all of a sudden, he just had one great restart and won the race and the championship for a seventh.
Yeah.
That's the only one that stands out to me is like that guy got really lucky right there, and probably shouldn't be a seven-time champion outside of those particular circumstances. Joey Logano to me is somebody that he should have won the championship in 2015 had Matt Kenseth not taken him out at Homestead or at Martinsville.
Yeah.
He was there in 2016 when Jimmy won the seventh and crashed with Carl Edwards. I don't know that he made it in 17, and then finally won it in 2018 after Jack and Truex up at Martinsville and winning Homestead. That to me, that 2018 championship felt huge. Like he was there so many years in a row, put everything together all year long, was fast, and finally got it done. And it was like, wow, this is a big deal. He won the championship. And then in 2022, it was like it was so up and down, and he finally, I mean, he made it happen when he finally got to Phoenix with a little bit of help from Ryan Blaney. And now in 2024, it just seems like the value of this one went down even less. In fact, I'm watching the race and I'm standing there in front of my TV, can't sit down because Blaney's running him down, and I'm just hoping that Joey's going to hold him off. Joey's going to find a way to do this. Joey's going to get a third championship, blah, 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 blah. And finally it happens, and then I just sat back down and I'm just like, what exactly did I root for? Like I'm very happy that he won the race. I'm very happy that he won a third championship, but this was terrible. The racing has been terrible. The car is terrible, and this is a dumb way to crown a champion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to state my case as a fan and as a fan of the sport and as somebody that just enjoys like the legitimacy of the championship format and racing and all that. And I just don't feel if you said, hey, you can have Joey Logano win this championship, or he's not going to win the championship, but he will win the Daytona 500 in February, give me the Daytona 500. And I don't know why that is. It feels that way, but it just does. And again, he has the second most wins on the year. How are you supposed to argue with the fact that that guy doesn't deserve the championship? But I don't know. It just is. I don't know. I don't feel great about the way things are right now as far as how we go about crowning our champion.
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like one thing goes wrong. Like Christopher Bell probably had the fastest car last year, and a brake rotor blows up, and he can no longer be a champion.
Yeah.
You know, it just. Whereas if you would go back to like the full season length or whatever, it's an average of the whole year. I just feel like racing is not not a stick and ball sport. It just I don't know. It just feels like anything can happen. That just something fluke, and then boom, you're no longer a champion.
Yeah. I can tell you, I've thought about this a little bit, and we can actually present this in a full episode at some point over the off season of how we would fix the playoff system. But I can tell you right now, I've got an idea of my own. It would be the 10 final races. You only get 10 drivers. Forget about the 16 nonsense. I don't care if you've won a race or not. It's purely based on points as far as who gets in. It's the cutoff of the 10th place driver. And the difference is when they reset, you get awarded a lot of points based on how many races you've won. If Kyle Larson goes into the playoffs with 5 wins, then he gets a ton of bonus points to start. If they don't ever reset, it's 10 total races. There are no rounds of elimination. It's just start to finish, just like the original chase was. And I think that you also need to get a pretty substantial bonus for being the regular season champion. It should count at least as much as a win would, as far as a race win goes for bonus points. It shouldn't be an insurmountable amount that automatically puts you to the end of the year, but it should be enough that if you have 2 or 3, 2 really bad races and 1 mediocre day in the final 10 races, it doesn't kill you. And then when you go to, the final race, it's just a matter of who's mathematically close enough to get there.
Yeah. I'd almost be curious with the chase format with the stage points. I don't think they didn't do stages and stuff until they did the playoffs, correct?
Right.
So, I mean, that would put so much strategy mid-race, racing for 10 points throughout a chase or whatever. Driver has a bad day, and let's say he's able to luck out a good finish, but a driver that dominated the race and finishes up front be more deserving of more points. He gets the stage points and stuff, or vice versa. You're having a bad day, you play strategy, you get stage points throughout the race, and then try to figure out what you can get at the end. That would just, I feel like there'd be a lot of strategizing and stuff all the way throughout a 10-race chase. You can see that at the end of the regular season championship. You had Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, and Chase Elliott. I think Elliott led the points there for a while, but he was only getting good finishes, and he wasn't running up front and getting stage points like Larson or Reddick was, and that's what really derailed him for the regular season championship. So the chase would reward the dominating cars, those who ran up front at all race, got stage points and all that throughout, or someone who knows they're going to struggle, strategizes for certain points or this or that. And I think that would be really intriguing.
Yeah. I almost would rather take it the other direction and throw out stages altogether. But in lieu of that, so that you don't have planned cautions, because that kills your strategy at places like a road course, is instead of that, you're paid points based on your average running position throughout the day. So if you're a Christopher Bell and you have the dominant car of the day, you lead the most laps, you're out front, you're never outside of the top 3 on pit strategy or anything, and you get wrecked on the final lap and finish last car in the lead lap, you're still paid a certain amount of points based on the fact that you had the highest running position of the day.
Yeah, to me that could get confusing. I mean,
no, I'm not saying that it would be confusing, but I think that rewards, instead of just trying to strategize to be up front on a certain lap, it incentivizes guys to run their highest all day long.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're not the ones making the rules, so this doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But getting back to the race itself, I thought the racing at Phoenix was not good. I can't believe that Joey Logano can use dirty air to hold Ryan Blaney back, the faster race car, at a 1-mile flat track. That seems absurd. Blaney clearly had the fastest car. I do think that there could have been some little bit of trickery on the 22 car, some mischief, some monkey business, so to speak, because I forget who said it on one of the podcasts I listened to. They said, I don't know what he found, but it was like 2 straight laps. He was running faster lap times than Blaney. And I remember exactly the point that they were talking about. It was with 10 to go. And Coleman Presley came on the radio and he said, 10 to go, hang your tongue out. And that obviously sounds like, get up on the wheel, get after it. Like, he's coming, you got to go hard. But I don't know if that was a code word for something, that some sort of trickery that they had involved in that car to keep that distance a little bit, because he hit those really fast laps right after that, and he didn't run another fast one after it.
Huh, I didn't happen to hear about that.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that there is anything mischievous going on there, but I'm saying that I would be looking into it if I were NASCAR.
Yeah.
Want to know what the deal was there, but
they probably didn't want any more controversy of telling a guy no, you can't do this, or putting one guy in over another.
I can just see somebody on the headset being like, Elton, are you hearing this? You're gonna have to go out and talk again. But yeah, ultimately, I'm happy that Joey won. I'm happy that Penske got a 1-2 finish. I don't know if Blaney was holding his breath the last 15 laps or what, but he sounded like he was in rough shape after the checkered flag flew. I think he was just very intently tracking 22 down and couldn't quite get there.
He made the comment. He said thought he was going to pass out trying to catch the 22 or trying to race the 22. So Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like he just wanted it real bad. Byron was fast, but not really a factor. And like we said, Reddick was just out to lunch all day on that.
Yeah.
But anything else you wanted to cover from this particular race?
I don't really have anything more.
Are you
We didn't really talk about the race much. We talked about the playoffs more than anything, but yeah.
Well, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about in the race.
Yeah.
I mean, it just was. It was hard to pass. Logano got the lead on the final restart, and that was it. The only other interesting thing that happened in the race was that the pace car crashed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what the deal was there, but I don't know. It just wasn't. Ty Gibbs hit the wall really hard to start the race. There just wasn't anything that was notable that happened during this race, and that's unfortunate because like a track like Homestead, we watched good racing the entire time, and I couldn't necessarily point to a ton of great moments, but I just remember watching this like this is what it's supposed to be, and I did not feel that way at Phoenix at all.
Yeah, Phoenix itself just doesn't lend itself to great racing. So
no, I agree. Do you feel like? Do you feel dissatisfied when the checkered flag flew at Phoenix?
kind of. I mean, I was excited watching Blaney catch Logano. Thought I wanted to see some at least side by side, and obviously I picked Blaney to win. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go get him. And I didn't really want Logano winning, but it just I just feel like Logano is probably one of the hardest cars to pass, and just the arrow with these cars is just I don't know. I just once the race was over, I was just like, okay, whatever happened. It wasn't. I just kind of shut it off and went on for the rest of my day. So
Yeah.
Any exciting races or something, I'm going and listening to people talk or what they had to say about it or what this or that or something. And this is just like I couldn't care less about what anybody had to say about it.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate. It just feels like there was no buzz after that.
I heard them talking to like even like fans outside of Phoenix Raceway or something. It was like usually the fans of the winning driver out partying, hollering, or this or that, and fans have said that like this is the most quiet it's ever been after a championship race. That, like I don't know, just nobody seemed excited for anything that happened or something like to that effect, and it just I don't know, it just didn't feel exciting.
Yeah, I do know. It's wild to say as a fan of the driver that won, but yeah, it just is. It's just
How many
not what
wins
it
does
used to
Joey
be.
Logano have?
What's that?
How many wins does Joey Logano have in his career now?
It's like 25 or something like that. I'm not sure the total.
Yeah, I just comparing it. Jeff Gordon is a four-time champion. He has 93 wins. So next year, Joey Logano could go win a few more races and win a championship. And he's a four-time champ with only a third of the wins of Jeff Gordon. It just, I know you're comparing different systems and stuff. It just calling him a four-time champ along with Jeff Gordon just doesn't sound right in my.
I don't disagree with that at all, what you're saying, but you also have to take into account the fact like, yeah, Joey had 4 wins this year. The guy that had the most was 6. When Jeff Gordon won championships, he had 10 wins in a season, and Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace and Terry Labonte had 9, 8, and 7. I mean, you had to win a lot of races to win those
Yeah.
championships. And you're right. It's a whole different era, the whole different playoff system, or a whole different point system that is. And just, I understand what you're saying. Like everything that Jeff Gordon had to go through to win 4 championships versus what Joey Logano would have to go through to win 4 championships does not seem like it's on the same level.
Yeah.
But there's not much we're going to do about it, I guess.
I guess not.
I'm almost at the point where I'd rather go back and watch old races just to. I am going to do some of that this off season if I ever get a free minute. I'm gonna watch. I have one like already loaded up in my brain. It's the 1997 Food City 5 or Sharpie 500, whatever it was, the Bristol Night Race from that year. I want to watch that one. I saw a clip of it on Twitter earlier this year, and I was like, that looks like there was a lot of hype around that race, and it's just a regular season, just a Bristol night race, and I want to see, was the racing really as good as I remember it being, or am I just being nostalgic and remember how cool things were when I was a kid and how fascinated I was? Um, and I'm curious to see what my take would be on that, but I think it's got to be better.
Yeah, I just the Gen 4 cars to me are just best era of NASCAR that I can remember. So
wholeheartedly agree with that.
um,
I wish that you could have those race cars with the bodies 6 inches up off the racetrack, with a lot of horsepower, spinning the tires coming off of the exit of the corners without the body skew. If you could take away the twisted sister fact of the car and just hang a straight body on them, I'd love to watch that.
yeah.
And that doesn't take away from the skill that it takes to hang that body. I just don't like the look of that. But
Yeah.
I don't know, anything else that you want to talk about from championship weekend?
That's all I got. So
That really is all that I have too. I don't know. It's always. I mean, I enjoy talking to you after the race, no matter what, if it's good, bad, right or wrong, whatever the case was, and everything that we saw throughout the weekend. Sometimes when you have races that were pretty mediocre, it feels like more of a chore to actually do the pod, but I still enjoy the conversation with you no matter what, and I'm glad that we've been able to do this all year long, if nothing else, just for the two of us to have the conversation about it. Um, but yeah, I'm a little disappointed that the year's over, but I'm ready for a break and ready to just be watching football on Sundays instead of football and NASCAR. And I'm looking forward to a Daytona 500. And I remember the first trivia question I asked you at the beginning of the year was, who was the last driver to win a championship and then come back and win the Daytona 500? It was. Do you remember who it was?
I want to assume it's Joey Logano, but I don't.
It was not, because
No, it's not.
he's only got one Daytona 500. It was 2015.
Mm. Yeah, I don't remember who it was then.
It was Dale Jarrett. He won the championship in '99, won the Daytona 500 in 2000. So maybe Joey can do that in 2025. We'll see if that's a possibility. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that. And yeah, I'm sure that we're going to do. I'm hoping that we have the opportunity to do a couple things throughout the off season. I have some ideas, but ultimately we'll be back doing this every week after the Daytona 500, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'd be. Well, we got the Clash before that too, so.
That's true. Yeah, and we'll have a season preview and all that, I'm sure, as
Yeah.
well. But as far as being a week-to-week recap, it's going to be after the 500. But
Yeah.
the Clash in Bowman Gray Stadium, that ought to be really interesting.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, I thank everybody that watched all year long and subscribes and likes the videos and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully we are able to continue to putting out social media content. TikTok seems to be where we get most of our interaction, so I'm looking forward to dropping some more stuff on there. And we will see you guys later.